Hello and welcome to the webinar for Mental Health Champions for this half term. I'm Sophie Davis and I'm just going to whiz through what's in the newsletter this half term and also give you an introduction to Solution Circles, which is a nice tool that you can have up your sleeve for your work as a mental health champion. So you should have had a copy of the newsletter by now for this half term. As always, it's just a bit of a summary of what's happening in terms of core and plus, and also other things that we think it might be helpful for you to know about. So this time there's a little bit of a just a prompt for people about peer supervision if they're part of Mental Health Champions Plus, and a prompt on providing feedback as well. We've now got the links up and running to the online SNAP survey system, which is a much easier way of people giving feedback than us having to email questionnaires and things. So this time there's a link to a QR code for the course that Georgina ran last half term. If you came to the Mental Health Champions Plus session on the importance of play for children's emotional well-being, the questionnaire didn't work at the time, the link didn't work. So if you did come to that last half term in December, and if you weren't able to give feedback for that, there's now a QR code that's on the newsletter for you just to scan with your phone, and then that takes you straight to the questionnaire. There's also a bit of a update on a pilot project that we're doing in Bradford around emotion-based school avoidance, which is a priority for a lot of authorities, but especially in Bradford. So there's a bit of information from Vicky Morris in the educational psychology team about the pilot project itself, but also a conference that's happening soon, and a prompt about Mental Health Week as well. If you haven't had a copy of the newsletter, if you just give us an email at the main email address, and then we can send a copy on to you. And every half term we like to just give you a bit of information about a different service or an organisation that we've come across that we think it might be helpful for you to know about. So this half term we've focused on Education Support, who you may have already come across in your school, but it's a really nice service to find out more about, because they offer quite a few free services for anybody who works in a school. They do also have paid packages that schools can sign up for as well. But in terms of the free support, they have a helpline, which is it's for anybody who works in a school. It's staffed by qualified counsellors, so you know that you can trust that the advice and signposting that you get is some good quality advice. So that's a free helpline, and you can download a poster for the staff room. If you get in touch with them, they'll also send you some leaflets and things as well. They also offer some financial support as well. They'll give grants to people. So it's done on a grant basis, so you have to apply and meet certain criteria, but it's to help school staff who might be struggling with living costs. So that's really helpful thing to know about too. They have different parts of their website, so there are downloadable resources and materials that you can access to kind of display in school, share with colleagues. Their focus is all on sort of well-being and employee mental health. They also have videos and articles and links to some research that they've been involved in too. There's some webinars that you can just access. Most of them are quite short. I think some of them you have to pay to see, but there's also a lot of free ones there too. And they offer some professional supervision for school leaders as well. So for people in SLT, and that is funded by the DFE, so that would be free to schools, but sometimes you have to wait a bit before you can access that. So it just depends on the demand for that service at any point. So Education Support is really worth knowing about. Look at their website, get in touch with them if you needed to find out more about anything. The website is just at the bottom there. So that brings us on to the main focus of this webinar, which is Solution Circles. So they have been around for quite a long time, and they're sometimes used in educational contexts like this, but they're also used in business, and there's quite a different range of applications for them because they're very quick, they're very easy, and it's a really nice kind of creative problem solving tool that can help people to get unstuck from a situation. So when people don't really know where to go with a situation and they kind of feel like they're going around in circles, they just don't know how to move things on, a solution circle is a really nice, quick, sort of snappy way of trying to get people a bit unstuck and for them to move on. So to run a solution circle, it's quite low demand in terms of what you need. You need about half an hour tops. The whole process end to end, if you stick to it in its sort of rigid formula, then it would take 24 minutes. So as long as you've got a half an hour or so, then you should be able to do a solution circle. It's a group activity, so you need normally sort of 3 people plus. 3 would be a really small group, but anywhere up to kind of about 8 people works really nicely because it gives people lots of opportunity to speak within those that limited time frame. So if you've got a massive group, a solution circle probably isn't the way forward for you. But for a small group, a solution circle can work really nicely. And it's a tool of community capacity. So it kind of makes the assumption that the people who you work with have the skills and they have the capacity to help if they're given the opportunity. So it's really nice. It means that everybody gets a chance to contribute. Everybody's ideas are valid. It's a really nice way to kind of draw on the skills that already exist within the people around you. And like I say, they can be used for a range of different types of problem, really. So anything where people are a bit stuck. So perhaps they don't know if they're missing something with a particular situation. They keep trying things and it's not working. They just don't know where they're going wrong. Perhaps they just want an opportunity just to kind of sit and think in a little bit more detail about something that they've been kind of grappling with for a while, or they might want some new ideas or a fresh pair of eyes or several different pairs of eyes on a situation. So you can use it for, in most cases, you'd probably use it for something work related. So that might be around a particular child or maybe a class or a group of children, or something to do with staff perhaps. But also you could use this for more personal issues as well, because it draws on, like I say, it draws on the assumption that your colleagues, your co-workers, have experiences, they have skills, they have ideas to contribute to whatever the problem might be. So once you've got your little group together then, and you've said, right, we're going to do a solution circle. So we've got half an hour, we're going to sit down together and do this thing called a solution circle. So within your group, you need to assign people some different roles. So the first person is the problem presenter. So that's the person obviously who you're there for. It's them who have some kind of issue that they want some help with. So they're called the problem presenter. Then you also assign somebody to be a facilitator. So their job is to keep an eye on the time, because as you'll see, it's quite a structured process. So we need somebody to keep their eye on the clock and make sure that that you're sticking to those timings. But also their role is to kind of just sort of chair things a little bit and just make sure that everybody's got an opportunity to contribute, that nobody sort of dominates the conversation and just keeps things moving nicely along. And then you assign somebody to be a note taker, so somebody who doesn't mind just keeping a record of what's said. So you can do this in different ways. You can be quite graphic about it, quite visual, and have a big piece of paper up on the wall or a whiteboard or something, and just fill it with ideas and diagrams and notes and little prompts to record the conversation. Or you might want to just sort of make notes on a piece of paper as you go, sort of more bullet point format. It's up to you, whatever you think will work for the problem presenter, really, because it's something that hopefully they will go away with a record of this. So it needs to be something that will just be useful for them afterwards. So that's your note taker. And then everybody else forms this brainstorm team. So everybody else is there to kind of contribute and listen and to join in with this solution circle process. So the first thing to do then is to assign 6 minutes to this process of problem presentation. So this is the first step. So in this first step then, the problem presenter has just 6 minutes to outline the problem in as much detail as possible. So they're giving lots of context, they're giving as much sort of background to the issue. They might be describing things that they've tried before that have and haven't worked. You're really sort of using this time as the problem presenter, you're using this time to give the brainstorm team and everybody else there as much information as possible so that they can then come up with the best solutions for you. So it sounds quite daunting to sit for 6 minutes, and one of the things about a solution circle is that time is quite fixed. So if you feel like you've finished explaining yourself after 2 minutes, it says that you should then stay quiet for another 4 minutes until your 6 minutes is up, which can sound quite daunting, but what that gives you is a little bit of kind of reflection time you normally find that people come up with other things. Once they've had a bit of a pause and they're thinking, right, I've kind of said everything I need to say, because they know that the clock's ticking and everyone's kind of sitting there in a slightly awkward silence, normally they think, oh, well, actually, yeah, maybe I need to tell you about this as well. Or, you begin to get a little bit more information, and it's just, there's something powerful about having that allotted time that you feel like you kind of have to use productively. So that's the first section. So the problem presenter gives as much information and context as possible. And at this point, the rest of the group just listen. So nobody should be asking questions or adding other bits of information that the person might have forgotten if they know a bit about the problem. It's just very much kind of their turn to listen at that point. So the facilitator is keeping their eye on the clock, making sure that no one interrupts. So that's their chairing role coming in there. The note taker takes notes as the person's talking, so sort of might write keywords or phrases or bits of information that the problem presenter gives. So they're making a bit of a record of what is said. And the brainstorm team, like I say, they're just listening at this point. So you've had your first 6 minutes, you understand what the problem is and the context around that. So step 2 is where things get very creative then. So this is the brainstorm section. And again, you only have 6 minutes for this, which normally feels, quite an action-packed 6 minutes. It doesn't feel like you get very long to explore any of the ideas, but that is the point of this brainstorm section. So in this section then, the brainstorm team, so that's everybody in the room really, apart from the problem presenter, everybody contributes ideas and creative solutions to the problem presenter. And at this point, any idea is valid. So it might be something a bit off the wall. It might be something that everyone's thinking, well, that'll never work because of this, this and this. But the idea is that you just chuck those ideas out. The note taker records them. Everything is valid. It's just a very creative time. Oh, imagine if we could try this, or, maybe you could think about doing it this way instead. So it's just a very sort of creative time where people chuck their ideas around and the note taker records those. So at this point, nobody's asking further questions, nobody's asking for clarification about anything. It's kind of initial thoughts to what you've heard when that problem presenter has spoken. So the facilitator's job at this point is to make sure that it's a team discussion. So again, you're sort of trying to make sure that no one dominates, that everybody gets an opportunity to have their ideas heard. And the problem presenter at this point is just listening. So they've had their turn to speak for 6 minutes beforehand. Now they're literally just listening to all these different ideas. So they're not interrupting, they're not responding, they're not kind of saying, oh, well, I've tried that before. This is just their turn to listen. And the note taker, like I've just said it, they continue to record those ideas and make a note of what's being said. So you're 12 minutes into the process now, and it's time to move on to step 3. So this is a discussion of possibilities. So again, you have just your 6 minutes for this section, which again can feel quite, it can feel quite difficult to get everything covered in 6 minutes. But the idea of a solution circle is that it kind of begins to get people unstuck. It doesn't solve everything. It just gives people some idea of the next step. So for this step then, now you have much more of a group discussion. So the problem presenter still leads the discussion. So they might start by saying, right, I really like what you said about this, or I've been thinking a little bit about this and I just want to talk this idea through a little bit more. So they're beginning to lead this discussion now based on all of the creative ideas that have come before. They might discount particular ideas. They might say, well, that was a brilliant idea what you said there, but I know that we couldn't possibly do that, so we're not going to spend time talking about that. It's their turn now to kind of respond to the suggestions that have been made. So at this point, you can have much more of a discussion. So the wider group might have further questions. So they might need to know a little bit more context. They might need to know a little bit more about what the problem presenter has tried before, things like that. So there's a lot more of a two-way dialogue at step 3. So you can really kind of explore and clarify the problem and get a much sort of clearer handle on what's actually happening. And the idea as well in this section is that you're focusing on the positives. So you're spending this very limited time on things that can be done rather than what can't be done. Okay, so you've not got very long. You've got to think about positive steps that you can begin to take. And that takes you to the last block of time in the solution circle then. So this is where you just identify some first steps. So like I've said, the solution circle isn't designed to give you a really detailed action plan of all these different actions you're going to take and when you're going to do them and what help you need and all of the rest of it. It's just very much getting you unstuck in that particular at that point in time. So your action plan, if you like, is just maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 different actions that spring to mind as things that you can do in the very near future to begin to get you sort of moving past this problem. So it might be that you need to go on a particular website and find out something. You might need to make a phone call to someone. You might need to find a particular resource or look into something that somebody suggested. Whatever it's going to be, it's just a few sort of bullet pointy things that you know that you can do fairly easily within about the first 3 days. And then the guidance also says that at least one of those actions should be something that you can do within that first 24 hours. And that's because the research suggests that if you don't do something within that 24 hours, you can often sort of lose the momentum that you've built up by having a solution circle. So ideally, at least one thing is something that you can do pretty immediately after the solution circle. And what you do also at this point is volunteer somebody in that circle to kind of check in with the problem presenter within that 3 days and just check that they've taken their first step and maybe sort of help them, if they need any further support, just check in to say, how did it go? Do you feel like you're doing, like you know what you're doing next? And then this is the very last part of the process. You don't have to do this. It's quite a nice exercise to do. It doesn't take very long, but the guidance would say that you do like a round of words to describe the experience of having taken part in this solution circle. So you just go through the group and everybody just very, very briefly summarises how helpful it's been for them, because it might have got them thinking about something to do with their own practice or their own personal experiences. But it's a nice way to kind of round things off as well, and also for the group to hear what impact their help has had on the problem presenter. And at this point, the note taker gives that record of all the notes and bullet points and things that they've been creating as the process has gone on. They give that to the problem presenter as their kind of notes from the session. And then that's it really. So you've done your solution circle. It's taken you less than half an hour if you've stuck to those timings. And hopefully that problem presenter is going to go away with a better idea of at least where to start on tackling this problematic situation. So it's obviously got benefits for the problem presenter, but for everybody else as well, solution circles have some other benefits. So there's something around just having that little sort of group identity, and that you are a group of individuals who came together at a particular time to help a particular colleague with a particular problem. So that gives you a little bit of a kind of group identity, and sometimes that process of collaborating with people that maybe you don't usually work with, or that you don't get to see very often, it's nice because it helps to unlock different relationships, and you get a little insight into the kind of approaches and ideas that your colleagues might have as well. And I think there's also something around this kind of ripple effect. So that idea that you're sharing ideas, you're coming that creative process where you're throwing ideas around and just sort of thinking on the spot of creative solutions and things that could work, they might not work, but just things that could work. Again, it's quite a freeing process often when people feel quite constrained by time and resources and things. It's quite nice to kind of think a little bit outside the box and do some of that kind of a little bit of blue sky thinking sometimes. And also it helps you to reflect on your own practice, because it might be that you've heard ideas that you think, actually, this might not work for this particular person for this problem, but that could help me in my job and what I do. So it can help to skill people up and create sort of spin-off effects that weren't sort of predicted at the beginning of the solution circle process. And it's a nice little safe environment for people to kind of access a bit of moral support from peers. So, you're sort of hearing from other people, maybe the conversations that you have as a result of having a solution circle, it makes you, it can make you feel, oh, I'm not the only person who struggles with this, or other people have experienced similar problems and this is what they did about it. So it can be quite an empowering process as well. And just to back that up in terms of research that's been done, there's been quite a lot of research around solution circles, and there is evidence to suggest that yes, staff do feel supported by using this process, but also they value the support of their colleagues as well coming to their aid. Staff report that they feel less stressed after discussing children that they were finding challenging. So again, it's kind of, I think there's something about the fact that they have a bit of an idea of what to do with the situation, but there's also something around the fact that they've just kind of offloaded to colleagues, that other people, you know, sort of have the opportunity to give them some support as well. And then it just creates those nice opportunities for people to talk uninterrupted, which is quite rare often, and to really know that your colleagues are listening to what you're saying as well. When people are very busy and rushing around, you don't often get that really sort of protected time to really talk and to really listen to your colleagues. And again, like we were saying about those kind of ripple effects of staff are more aware of the kind of difficulties and pressures that their colleagues are facing, so you can give each other more support and maybe check in with each other. And also it just creates that atmosphere of kind of people working together, people supporting each other, rather than everybody going off into their own little classrooms or own little jobs and doing their thing. There's something around, you know, sort of helping each other and being aware of what everybody else needs as well. So hopefully solution circles feel like something that you might be able to use in your practice as a champion. It might be that you're thinking of a particular group of staff, or maybe a situation that you know would be sort of well tackled by a solution circle. If you wanted any sort of further advice or wanted to talk it through before you ran one, if you just drop us an email at the main email address, and we can maybe have a conversation with you about that. Just to flag up then before we go, for those of you who are part of Mental Health Champions Plus, the next training sessions are on the 12th, 13th and 14th of March. So Sabia is running some sessions on the impact of trauma on brain development. So if you were interested in those and haven't signed up, then do that via Skills for Bradford. And there's also a peer supervision session on the 20th of March. So as usual, there'll be 2 different slots, and you can just sign up for whichever one suits you. That's the afternoon of the 20th of March. If you are not part of Mental Health Champions Plus, but you'd quite like to be, just email our main email address and request to join. We just ask for 1 named champion per setting. I know in some schools you've got people who job share. We just need 1 person's contact details just to keep it manageable. But signing up to Mental Health Champions Plus gives you access to this training if you want to come to it. You don't have to, it's optional, but it's there for you. It's every half term, and also the peer supervision as well. So thank you for listening to the webinar, and we hope to see you at another session soon.